A woman climbs into the cockpit of a twin-engine aircraft on a humid July morning in 1937, preparing to complete a journey no woman has ever accomplished before. She's already the most famous female aviator in the world, a household name, an inspiration to millions. In just a few hours, she'll vanish over the Pacific Ocean along with her navigator, sparking the most expensive search and rescue operation in American history up to that point. But they'll find nothing. No wreckage, no bodies, no definitive answers. For 87 years, the disappearance of Amelia Earhart has remained one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. We've been told she ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. Case closed. But recent discoveries, including artifacts found on a remote Pacific island, analysis of a distorted photograph, and newly declassified documents, are challenging that official narrative and suggesting something far more complex, and possibly sinister, happened to Amelia Earhart. Welcome back to Crime Scout, True Stories. While Amelia Earhart's disappearance isn't a traditional crime, the theories surrounding what really happened involve possible espionage, government cover-ups, and the deliberate suppression of evidence. Today we're examining the new evidence that's emerged in recent years and the shocking theories that might finally explain what happened on July 2, 1937. Amelia Earhart was 39 years old when she disappeared. Born in Kansas in 1897, she'd broken barriers throughout her aviation career. She was the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932, earning her international fame and a ticker-tape parade in New York City. She set multiple aviation records, wrote best-selling books, and became a powerful advocate for women in aviation and professional fields. By 1937, she decided to attempt something unprecedented, a flight around the world at the equator, approximately 29,000 miles, the longest route possible. The journey began on June 1, 1937, when Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, departed from Miami, Florida. They flew east, making stops in South America, Africa, India, and Southeast Asia. By late June, they'd completed over 22,000 miles, arriving in New Guinea, with only 7,000 miles remaining. The next leg would be the most dangerous, a 2,500-mile flight over the Pacific Ocean to Howland Island, a tiny coral atoll just 1.6 miles long. Finding Howland Island would require precise navigation and perfect conditions. On July 2, 1937, at 10 a.m. local time, Earhart and Noonan took off from in their Lockheed Electra aircraft. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca was positioned near Howland Island to provide radio navigation assistance. For the next 18 hours, the Itasca received sporadic radio transmissions from Earhart. The messages became increasingly concerned. She reported cloudy, overcast conditions. She couldn't see the island. She was running low on fuel. Her final transmission, received at 8:43 a.m. Howland time, stated, "We are running north and south." Then, silence. The official search began immediately. The Navy and Coast Guard deployed ships and aircraft, covering over 250,000 square miles of ocean. They found nothing. After 17 days and $4 million spent, the search was called off. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan were declared dead in absentia on January 5, 1939. The official conclusion was that they ran out of fuel, crashed into the Pacific, and sank. For decades, this remained the accepted explanation. But some people never accepted it. Almost immediately, alternative theories began emerging. Some were wild conspiracy theories involving alien abduction or time travel. Others were more grounded in evidence and possibility. In recent years, three major theories have gained serious traction among researchers, historians, and forensic experts: the crash and sink theory, the Nikomaroro Island castaway theory, and the Japanese capture theory. Let's examine each one and the new evidence supporting them. The crash and sink theory is the official explanation. It proposes that Earhart and Noonan simply missed Howland Island due to navigation errors, cloud cover, or radio problems. When their fuel ran out, they ditched the plane in the ocean, where it sank rapidly. Both occupants drowned, and the ocean swallowed all evidence. This theory is supported by the fact that no confirmed wreckage has ever been found, despite extensive searches. The Pacific is vast and deep, and aircraft that crash into the ocean can sink quickly, especially if they break apart on impact. Recent sonar expeditions have attempted to locate the wreckage on the ocean floor. In 2019, marine explorer Robert Ballard, who discovered the Titanic, led an expedition using advanced underwater robots to search the waters around Howland Island. They found nothing. However, the search area is enormous, and the ocean floor in that region is complex, with trenches over 3 miles deep. The absence of wreckage doesn't disprove the crash and sink theory, it just means we haven't found it yet. The second theory, and perhaps the most compelling based on physical evidence, is the Nikumaroro Island castaway hypothesis. Nikumaroro is a small, uninhabited coral island about 350 miles southeast of Howland Island. The theory proposes that Earhart and Noonan, unable to find Howland, flew south and made an emergency landing on Nikumaroro's flat coral reef at low tide. They survived the landing but became castaways on the deserted island, eventually dying from dehydration, starvation, or injury. This theory gained serious credibility through the work of the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, known as TIRE. Since 1988, TIRE has conducted multiple expeditions to Nikumaroro and uncovered intriguing artifacts. In 1991, they found aircraft aluminum that matched the type used in Earhart's Lockheed Electra. They discovered a woman's shoe from the 1930s, a sextant box consistent with what Noonan would have carried, and glass jars that could have held freckle cream, which Earhart was known to use. Most compelling are the bones. In 1940, a British colonial officer found skeletal remains on Nikumaroro along with a woman's shoe and a sextant box. The bones were sent to Fiji for analysis, where a doctor concluded they belonged to a European male. The bones were subsequently lost. For decades, this seemed to disprove any connection to Earhart. However, in 2018, a forensic anthropologist from the University of Tennessee reanalyzed the bone measurements from the 1940 report using modern techniques. His conclusion was startling. The bones were more consistent with a tall white female of European descent, and the measurements closely matched Amelia Earhart's known height and build. The 1940 analysis had been wrong. Additionally, researchers analyzing enhanced historical photos of Nikumaroro's coastline claim to have identified what appears to be landing gear protruding from the water in a 1937 aerial photograph taken just months after Earhart's disappearance. If confirmed, this would be direct evidence of her plane on the island. The third theory is the most controversial, the Japanese capture hypothesis. This theory proposes that Earhart and Noonan didn't crash at all, but instead flew north toward the Japanese-held Marshall Islands, either intentionally or by navigation error. Once there, they were captured by the Japanese military, who suspected them of being American spies. According to this theory, they were taken to Saipan, imprisoned, and eventually executed. This theory seems outlandish until you examine the evidence. Dozens of witnesses in the Marshall Islands and Saipan have reported seeing a white female pilot and male navigator in Japanese custody in 1937. A Saipan woman claimed she witnessed the execution of 2 American prisoners matching their descriptions. U.S. Marines who occupied Saipan after World War II reported finding aircraft wreckage that locals said belonged to Earhart's plane, though this wreckage has never been conclusively identified. The most sensational evidence is a photograph discovered in the National Archives in 2017. The photo, taken in Jalawat Atoll in the Marshall Islands and dated 1937, shows a dock with several people. Facial recognition experts claim that 2 figures in the photograph closely resemble Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan. A barge in the background appears to be towing an aircraft consistent with the size and configuration of Earhart's Lockheed Electra. However, this photograph has been heavily disputed, with some researchers claiming it was actually taken in 1935, before Earhart's final flight, undermining its evidential value. The Japanese capture theory also involves allegations of a government cover-up. Some researchers believe that Earhart's final flight was actually a secret reconnaissance mission for the U.S. government, tasked with photographing Japanese military installations in the Pacific under the guise of a record-setting flight. When she was captured, the U.S. government couldn't acknowledge the spying mission and was forced to maintain the crash and sink narrative. Declassified documents show that the Roosevelt administration was indeed concerned about Japanese military expansion in the Pacific in 1937, lending some plausibility to this scenario. However, most mainstream historians and Earhart biographers dismiss the Japanese capture theory as lacking credible evidence. The witness testimonies are inconsistent, often second-hand, and in some cases have been proven false. The photograph's authenticity is disputed. And there's no documentary evidence from Japanese military archives supporting the capture story. So where does this leave us? After 87 years, we still don't have definitive proof of what happened to Amelia Earhart. The crash and sink theory remains the official explanation, but it's never been proven. The Nikomaroro castaway theory has the most physical evidence, with artifacts and bone analysis supporting it, but it's still circumstantial. The Japanese capture theory has eyewitness accounts and suggestive photographs, but lacks hard proof. What we know for certain is this. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan disappeared on July 2, 1937, during an attempted flight around the world. Their fate remains unknown despite being one of the most investigated disappearances in history. New technologies, from advanced sonar to DNA analysis to satellite imaging, continue to be applied to the case, and each year brings new discoveries and renewed hope for answers. This has been Crime Scout, True Stories. The mystery of Amelia Earhart reminds us that even in our modern world with all its technology, some questions remain unanswered, and some people simply vanish into history. Subscribe for more cases where the truth is still being uncovered, one piece of evidence at a time.